Darren, thanks for joining us. Let's start with the new UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who is set to meet with Joe Biden at the White House for their first face-to-face meeting. Look, I've got to say, hopefully Joe Biden stays awake long enough to actually greet the new PM. But what can we expect from these talks?
Well, look, I think you may be onto something there, right? It'll be nothing short of a miracle if Sir Keir Starmer, with all the charisma of an automated voice from one of those big corporates telling you that your call is important to them, driving you absolutely spare, it'll be a miracle if that man doesn't send this ailing president straight to sleep. So you're absolutely spot on. But look, I think what's crucial here is that Sir Keir Starmer wants to immediately start discussions on issues like Ukraine, on demanding a ceasefire in Israel. He has big populations with Muslim votes, and that's a real key issue to a lot of his voter base. Now, to me, and I'm sure many viewers agree with this, I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit of tension with this new prime minister on issues we face here at home, right? Domestic issues, which are many. Mass migration, you've got illegal migration of the kind that Australia once saw, chronic housing shortages, healthcare waiting lists, swollen class sizes, in part thanks to that mass migration that I speak of. And yet this war that shows, in Ukraine especially, showing no signs of ceasing, that we've pumped billions into in arms and cash, that's viewed as more important to the incoming prime minister than domestic issues. And let's not forget, right, that Ukraine is a nation that was dismissed by Nato as being a little bit too corrupt for them. So I'm not sure many of the British people are going to have that much sympathy for this prime minister focusing resolutely and doggedly on these issues as far as foreign policy is concerned over the many pressing issues that we face in this country domestically. We've got serious issues here. It cannot be overstated.
No, that's a good point. And I've got to say, the UK looks like it's in for quite a ride. Keir Starmer says he wants to reduce the number of people going into prison. He says there's too many in the system. So, Darren, not only will he resume processing asylum applications for illegal arrivals, it looks like he's going to let criminals out soon.
Yeah, you couldn't make it up, really, could you? I doubt I'm alone in thinking that this is all going to bite the nation royally in the backside, right? I mean, the new Labour prisons minister has said that only a third of the British prison population should actually be behind bars. Now, he's made laudable moves in his own career in his key cutting business, which is quite a large business here in Britain, at hiring former offenders. Now, that sort of thing, I think, is an initiative we can get behind. We are all forgiving sinners, right? None of us are beyond redemption. If you go back many a moon, we used to believe that. But I think that's quite different, though, quite different to suggesting that criminals ought to not be banged up at all by approving automatic release of convicts less than halfway through the sentence to actually free up prison population, right? We already live in a country in which criminals don't fear repercussions for theft, for vandalism, for burglaries, the sort of sights you would see in San Francisco. They're very much coming to London. We're having to lock up basic goods and foodstuffs to avoid them being ransacked from supermarkets. Now, these things happen without investigation in many cases, and it doesn't take a genius, right, to figure out that if criminality goes unpunished, then more people will be tempted to take it up as their own tax-free profession. So I just wonder how many people would have voted for the Labour Party had they placed this get-out-of-jail-free card, quite literally, into their manifesto, and, of course, on illegal migration, granting amnesty to those that have arrived here illegally. That is utter madness. How do we know these people don't wish us harm? Why are they here? We don't want them here. And I'm afraid it's quite as simple as that for the British public.
Well, look, it sounds like a complete recipe for disaster, doesn't it? And it's just going to keep spiralling out of control from here. I want to go through Keir Starmer's new cabinet. It looks like a complete psycho circus. You've got the new Lord Chancellor and Secretary of State for Justice, Shabana Mahmood, a pro-Palestine activist with a history of anti-Israel, pro-Gaza sentiments. You've got the UK's new Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, who... well, I mean, he thinks that men can grow a cervix.
I don't know if it's transphobic, but it's not accurate, Nick. I mean, obviously, it's probably the case that that trans women don't have ovaries, but a cervix, I understand, is something that you can have following various procedures and hormone treatment and all the rest of it.
And we can't forget this iconic Lammy moment.
It feels like neighbourhood policing has vanished. It's not around you. We haven't seen a police while I've been here, and I've been here for a little while now.
Darren, look, a bunch of complete weirdos by the sounds.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Miss Mahmood, Justice Secretary, you know, she tried pandering to the extremists within the United Kingdom with those more extreme elements, at least, within the British mainstream, I guess you could argue. And that hasn't worked out because the sheer levels of intimidation and threats that she was met with during the general election just show that pandering to these hate marches and the hate marchers that have marched on our streets every weekend since October 7th doesn't get you anywhere. They don't want to reason. They actually would quite like to overthrow the system of the United Kingdom. So you've got to stand resolutely against them. And hopefully Miss Mahmood might see that now after that general election experience in which she did receive really quite abhorrent intimidation. But on David Lammy, I mean, there is no redemption for this man. He really is a plank. I mean, I honestly don't know how this man managed to get a university degree. It is quite extraordinary. I'm often told by the left, right, that I am uneducated because I don't actually have a degree. But when people like that within the Labour shadow cabinet, in the now cabinet, are spouting out these nonsense banalities, well, you sort of think a degree clearly ain't all that helpful in modern Britain, is it? And I'm afraid to say, in many respects, these are diversity and inclusion hires that are going to not serve the British public one iota. And it's the same old Labour Party, folks. They keep saying they've changed. They really haven't. You should be there on talent. And I tell you what, David Lammy, well, he ain't got much of that.
Well, clearly, I mean, as you said, the guy is a complete plank.